Welcome to Beyond the Blueprint, the podcast where we explore growth, resilience, and lessons that shape our journeys.
I'm Barry, and I'm here with my brother Timoni. Together we dive into honest conversations about life, success, and everything in between.
This is a space for relatable insights, practical advice, and stories that help you carve your own path.
So let's look beyond the blueprint.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Blueprint podcast. For the people that are coming back, welcome back. For the people that are first timers, welcome. Like, share, subscribe. You know, those are the golden rules. Well, at least some of the golden rules. My name is Barry Chamulonde. Timoni.
My name is Timoni Chamulonde, and based off of our matching last names, that indicates we're brothers. So, yeah.
How are you doing, my brother?
I'm all good, man. I literally just started my break today, what we call R&R, which should stand for rest and rehabilitation, right?
I think so.
But basically, I started my break. I've been at it for like a good 6 weeks. So, yeah, you know, let's just say I'm gonna have a good night's sleep today. But I'm all good.
Please tell them that you've been at it for the love of the podcast.
Yeah, for the love of the podcast as well.
Yeah.
And how are things on your side?
All good, man. Work is busy. I equally just came back from work right now to try and make this happen. Yeah, but busy at the moment. It's a relatively slower period because month end's out the way, but month end's around the corner, forecast is around the corner, trying to do all that admin and the ad hocs that you can't get around to. Yeah, trying to train as hard as I can. Yeah, all good. Can't complain.
That's great.
All right. Anyway, for those that are listening, and particularly for those that are watching, there's a person sitting between us, so we're not going to make this any more awkward. David, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing real good. Thank you for having me on.
No problem. I'm very curious because the accents always get people.
Yeah.
So I think this is going to be one of those that our listeners and our viewers might have to sit very close to that rewind button and pay very close attention to what's being said, because I think you don't have a very Zambian or African accent. So
Yeah.
Do you want to ice break?
Yeah. You actually remember it.
You forgot. Yeah.
Because the last two episodes Barry did with just the two of us. So we usually have icebreakers for guests, but since we were by the two of us, I think it became a bit of a routine to not remember the icebreakers. But thanks for reminding me.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So as per usual, I'm just gonna give you 30 seconds. We're doing 30 or 45 seconds. No,
45.
Dave's the talker.
I think Dave's
Dave's the talker. So we're
got
gonna give him
enough to
45
say.
seconds to tell us about yourself. Anything that comes to mind. This is just to filter through to the fundamentals of who you are.
It's like
Sure.
an elevator pitch.
Yeah, it's like an elevator pitch. So the stopwatch is there and go.
And we're going.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm David Ketel. So I'm from Canada, born and raised there. And I've recently come to Zambia in the last year or so for work with FQM. And I'm a mechanical engineer by training. I have a family, a beautiful wife, 2 kids. Both my kids are at university ages already. They're in Canada doing their degrees. My wife is working on a degree right now, finishing it off while she's taking a bit of a break from work. But for myself, you know, grew up in Canada with a large family and started on a cattle ranch, learned a lot there, practical work, that type of thing. Went through, you know, all the regular schooling and that type of stuff, and was really involved in, you know, activities all around, including like church activities and activities outside of work. We did a lot of fun games. We did a lot of motocross racing and all kinds of fun stuff. But that's just me in a nutshell. We'll get into more as we
Pretty big
go.
nutshell.
That was already a minute.
Yeah,
That's the longest we've actually gotten.
someone to
Wow.
So that,
continuously,
the
so
first, the first person to get to a full minute.
It's pretty cool. Then you do your
Most of our guests struggle.
icebreaker.
My icebreaker is, what's something about you that if the guests found out, they would be surprised by?
Surprised by. Well, probably the one thing that we talking about the other day is I do ultra endurance running, and you know, not a lot of people do that, so that's kind of surprising, I guess.
Okay, all right. The thing that I'm pretty curious about is because you look pretty young, right? And I mean, you're very fit. I'm about to get into that, but I'm very surprised to hear that you've got kids that are in university.
Yeah. So I'm 43 years old, and my wife and I, we met when we were 21, and we got married 6 months after we met. And then we had a kid 9 months after we got married. So,
Yeah, just worked like
just
clockwork.
well worked.
And what's the age difference between your children?
They're 18 months apart.
Okay.
Yeah.
Snap.
Yeah.
You did it. You've done a good job. And you know what? I've got that hot take that I think human beings should have kids much earlier.
Yeah.
Like have kids when you're in your early 20s. Like, of course, circumstances. But if you have kids in your early 20s, what you're setting yourself up for is being older, able to do ultra marathons, study, and have kids in university.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you do any of, especially like the ultra marathon stuff? Do you do any of it with your son?
No,
Your
not
kids?
really. But what we did a lot was actually motorcycle racing.
Okay.
So that's the other interesting thing. But we did motocross racing when they were young, all the way up until even last year.
Okay.
And that's really what brought us together on like a family activity that we did together.
Yeah.
And they raced at a very high level, at a professional level in Canada.
Oh, they're following the footsteps of their dad, just doing crazy things, which is pretty cool. My dream has always been to like play football because I'm a big football person.
Yeah.
Soccer,
Soccer,
as you guys call it. Yeah. But yeah, it's always been a dream of mine to play football with my kids or my sons, my daughters. So if I do want that dream to actualize, I probably need to start thinking of having kids. But that's a whole other conversation.
Well, I'll tell you what I did on that. So I really enjoyed soccer too, football.
Yeah.
So when our kids were coming up through the ranks, we put them into a soccer club, and then I ended up being their coach.
Is it?
And after a while, we did the same with other sports like hockey, like ice hockey in Canada, and volleyball. My daughter was involved in that, and other sports like that. So it was a way to do it with them as they were growing up.
Okay. All right. We'll unpack all of that.
Yeah.
So just starting off, he says he works for First Quantum. You know that I work for First Quantum. So that's essentially how we know each other. But David and I actually meet in a bit of an interesting way. So like you said, is an ultra marathon runner. And I think in one of our previous episodes, we talk about the fact that I did a High Rocks. And so that's my first High Rocks. I'm nowhere near as fit as David, probably nowhere near as fit as Timweni. But I'm like, let me challenge myself. Let me do this thing, right? And then I go for it. And yeah, first round, I'm like, yeah, probably keeping up. And then after that, David and there's another guy, I won't say his name because I don't know if he wants his name to be said, but these guys breeze through this thing. Like I'm asking myself, are they doing all of the reps?
Maybe they're cutting corners.
They might be cutting corners, but then, they're done. I didn't manage to do like 2 or 3 exercises, but we finished the day off. So him and I have a bit of a casual chat. But then we meet after that and I'm like asking him, what's this fitness journey about? What's going on? And then he essentially tells me that he's training for a ultra marathon. Is that what you called it?
Yeah. So absolutely. An ultra marathon in the mountains. Yeah.
So what is the name of the competition? Where will it be held?
Yeah.
What sort of training are you doing to get yourself up ready for that?
So this particular race is, I've done probably half a dozen similar races, but it's been a little while ago since I've done my last one. So I'm really trying to get back into it at this point. And this one is called the Mountain Ultra Trail, and it's put on in George, South Africa, in the mountains behind George, just north of George. So it's pretty extreme as far as elevation goes. And there's about 4,000 meters of elevation gain over a 60-kilometer distance for this event.
Crazy.
For me.
That's mad.
Yeah, it's fun.
I've got a friend, funny enough, and I'll answer this. This is me providing an answer for her, using the podcast as a medium. For you people who do these ultra things, not just marathons, what is the goal? Because sometimes you see people like cycle 100 kilometers, you see people like run 50 kilometers, like full marathons, and even more than that,
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people wonder, what are you trying to achieve? Or is there some sort of fulfillment you feel from doing it? Maybe you could just break that down for everyone.
Yeah, certainly. For me, it's about continually improving, finding the next challenge for myself. And, in work and in my career, I've always challenged myself that way. But I always found that I needed to find a physical challenge as well. Yep. So I would often sign up for a really challenging event and build a plan to achieve it over a period of time, recognizing that nothing comes naturally for me. I always had to work for it. But if I found the right way to work towards it, and I understood the science behind how the body works in those extreme conditions, I could train myself to adapt to that and overcome that challenge from a personal perspective.
Okay.
I'm naturally competitive, but it's mostly competitive against myself.
Okay, which should be the biggest person you should be competitive against.
Yeah, is yourself. Yeah,
I think so.
So what sort of training? I'm very curious to unpack, because I mean, in some of the conversations we've had, you've talked about running around with a weighted vest.
Yeah.
But is there a diet component in this? And I know you said you go to the gym. I think when we spoke, you said you go to the gym like once a week, but you're running more. What's the structure? What's the plan sort of looking like right now to get yourself ready for that?
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing about this type of event is it's not something you prepare for over a month. It's something you prepare for over a year or years.
Long period.
So for me, I had to do a build up over the last 2 years because I actually damaged my shoulder in a downhill skiing accident. I fell off a big cliff and I wrecked my shoulder. So I wasn't able to train properly for a while. So I had to recover that first of all. And then I had to build up my muscle and my strength again. So I had a professional strength training coach that I went to twice a week. And then I had a slow build running program where I started with a 5 kilometer jog and all the way up and up. And now over the last 3 months, as I'm getting closer to the event, I've focused less on strength and much more on running. So I've slowly progressed every week on my long runs from 10 kilometers up to now 30 kilometers is what I got to do this week coming up for one of my long runs. And part of the reason I do that is to understand how my body's going to respond to the longer durations under that stress.
Sorry, Tamani, so one of the things we did speak about is, because I asked you, have you always been this fit? Have you always been pushing yourself? And you said, no, my life doesn't actually start off like this. I was kind of living a bit unhealthy, I think is what you said. And you weren't very happy with the way that your body was looking. And you made a decision and you basically took a turn and started investing in your health. What does that taking a turn look like? Did you just wake up in the morning, look in the mirror and say, I don't like what I look like, I'm going to run 5Ks every day? Or is it because people kept telling you that you don't look good and you decided to change? Where was your head at the time?
No, good question, right? So when I was younger, I was always quite athletic. And then when I was in college in my early 20s, I was hitting the gym and doing those things because I enjoyed it. And then, as you know, I said before, I had kids pretty young. So my fitness kind of took a back burner to raising a family. And by the time I hit my early 30s, my fitness and my weight just wasn't where I wanted to be. But the real catalyst actually was I went skydiving. Okay. And the limit for skydiving was a certain weight threshold for the parachute. And I was 1 kilogram below the weight threshold for that parachute. And I was like, what the heck? I'm too heavy to go skydiving?
Yeah.
Like,
that's too heavy to pull out the sky?
Yeah, I know, right? So it was a strange thing. But so that combined with my dad passed away just shortly there from lung cancer. So between recognizing I was out of shape and the real wake-up call that my dad passed away from lung cancer made me realize I'd be serious about how I treat my body. So that was the big catalyst. And then I started training for a marathon very shortly after that happened. And that was 2017, 2018. So I did a kind of a slow build up. I did a marathon and then I did a 50K run. And then I did a 50-mile run. And then I did a 100-kilometer run. And I just kind of kept with it and figuring out, again, how my body adapts to it and the strength and the conditioning required to that type of activity. So at the same time, I was racing motocross almost every weekend. So you have to be very strong for that type of endurance race, plus the running. So all that combined kind of got me fit the way I am today.
I can keep grilling. You want me to keep going?
I like the direction the conversation is taking, so carry on.
Okay. I had a question, and right after saying I can keep grilling, it left my mind. But okay, so you've obviously done a lot. You've talked about skiing. You've spoken about skydiving, motocross. Running 100Ks. The question in my mind is: do you run the full 100, or do you walk at any point in time? But where does this adrenaline junkie come from? Like, are you just always putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, or is someone pressuring you into doing these things? What's going on? Why skydiving? What happened?
For me, it's really the adventure seeking that I enjoy. Like, I don't enjoy getting hurt, not at all.
Okay.
So I always go in with a very calculated assessment. And, if you relate it to the work environment, I take the same precautions. analyze my gear, I analyze the event, I make sure I have the right training for it, both physical and mental. So I have the right capability and capacity to do it in a way that minimizes the risk. But I really enjoy the challenge that all comes with that. So the preparation that's required, but then also challenging myself to execute at a high level. So I have a desire for adventure. And I found that by doing these activities, it helps fulfill that desire for adventure in a lot of different ways.
In our last episode, Bear and I spoke about the hedonic treadmill on one of our last episodes. I don't know if you've heard about it.
I've heard a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, so it's the whole thing of, well, I don't know if it applies to this, but it's about chasing, is it just material things or constantly chasing like a bigger goal?
Yeah.
And you don't get satisfied by it. You end up in this repetitive motion of constantly chasing bigger things, even though you're achieving bigger things. Do you feel like there's a sense of, not boredom, but like lack of satisfaction that you want to keep going bigger? Like, do you feel satisfied by what you've achieved so far? And if not, do you plan on keeping to go bigger and bigger and bigger?
That's a very good question because when I reflect on my experience, I was caught in that cycle of achievement for a very long time. And it's only been in the last couple of years that I've kind of let that go and not really realized, I always kind of knew, but then taking it seriously, that's not about achieving the next thing. It's about challenging myself in areas that I enjoy. So, it's not about necessarily beating someone else either. It's just about, finding joy in life.
Okay. All right. So how was it moving to Zambia from Canada? Did you live in Canada your whole life? And was your first trip to Zambia your first trip to Zambia? I'm assuming it was your first trip. But was your first experience in Zambia, Africa? And how was it moving from Canada to Africa, Zambia?
Yeah. So yes, I always lived in Canada. And most of the time I've traveled through North America, a little bit into Mexico and the Caribbean a little bit. So coming to Zambia and coming to a totally different continent was very eye-opening, very different. It was the biggest trip I've ever taken in my life.
Okay.
And prior to this, I did one trip to Europe where I was doing some work for the International Atomic Energy Agency. And that's a whole story in itself. We don't have to get into right now, but that was the longest trip I took. And so coming all the way down to Africa, it's an incredible opportunity for me to be able to work and travel and see something that's so uniquely different than North America.
Okay, so tell us, I like stories, right? So I'm hoping that you can narrate this in a bit of a story. One of the questions I have is, one, why did you become a mechanical? You said mechanical engineer?
Mechanical, yeah.
And then what's the journey and the progression leading up to this point?
Wow, that's a long story. But
Well,
we'll break
in
it
a
down.
succinct way.
Yeah.
Nah, so I was always interested in mechanics. And that comes back to that motorcycle interest that I had. So when I finished high school, I didn't really know what to do because I grew up on a farm and I didn't even know what a mechanical engineer was. My mom was a teacher. My dad was a farmer. That's what I knew.
Yeah.
So I started going through a pamphlet to look what I wanted to do in college because that's what everyone kind of did, go to college. And even though you might not know what you want to do, you're going to go to college. So I went through the pamphlet. I thought, being a mechanic would be interesting. I thought I wanted to be a mechanic, fix cars, pull wrenches, have a garage. And then my mom said, well, you know what? You have really good grades in high school. You had good science, all the maths. So why don't you try this mechanical engineering thing? So I looked into it a little bit and I signed up for it. And I didn't want to do a 4-year degree because I thought, that's silly. That's too much time in university.
Yeah.
So I did a 2.5-year college diploma to start. And I was very happy I did that. It was a very hands-on practical education. You do design, you do welding, you do fabrication, you understand machine design a lot. And then I had the opportunity to do a lot of 3D modeling and CAD design. So I got out of school and I worked in a place where I could apply those skills really quick. And I really enjoyed that. Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty cool. The thing I wanted to ask is, when you went into engineering, and we sort of spoke about this before, just to fill Barry in, and obviously the listeners,
Yeah.
not just you, Barry.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you go into these professions or careers, I was telling him, we don't actually know that what we want is what we're getting out of what we're going to study or what we're going into. Let me explain. I always ask, and I've asked you this question before, what is the biggest misconception people have about, as an example, accounting and finance, right? is it's not really about numbers much. It's more about concepts and frameworks
And principles.
and principles. But you see how someone can easily think when you're good at math, there's math, but not engineering math. Again, like we perceive. So when you were told this is mechanical engineering and this is what you're gonna go do, what you got out as the end product or what you eventually attained, is it exactly what you thought you wanted to attain before?
No, good question. So I would say by the time I was finished, I would say yes. By the time I finished, from the program I took, because it was very hands-on and very applicable to the stuff I was interested in, it made sense to me. And I could go out of that training and actually apply it to my job right away. But after that, I have all kinds of other training and degrees and masters and stuff like that. And I would say it's different depending upon what you're taking. So for me, it was pretty straightforward. I know if I go talk to my daughter about her biology, it's a different answer because it's a little bit more open and generic and could be applied in a lot of different ways. So probably the same with a business degree, for example.
All right. So now you do your diploma. What happens next?
Yeah. So I quickly got in with a company where I had a lot of growth opportunity because it was in a small community. And I was had the opportunity in a couple of years to become supervisor and then plant manager. And I did a lot of design, fabrication, work with end customers, developing products for agriculture and oil and gas companies, and learned very quickly how to lead a team. What I learned though very quick was machines are easy, people are hard.
And I think a lot of people think it's the other way around. They think that the execution of the doing of the work is the difficult part. But leading people, I've never led anyone yet, at least in the professional sense.
But you've existed in a society with people.
Definitely.
And think
Younger
about
brothers as well.
Yeah. But like traversing some of those relationships, because some people say, oh, you didn't call me today. Why didn't you call me? Others will say, this guy's so annoying. He calls me every day. Like, it's trying to balance and understand people. I think even at a horizontal level, we see that
Definitely.
challenge.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So I'm trying to get to a point where, I'm trying to get us to a point where you're at First Quantum, and what does your day-to-day sort of look like?
Okay, well, that's a big jump, but that's okay. What I want to talk about just a little bit on how I got to my job at First Quantum was the fact that I was able to do human resource management courses and leadership courses during that whole time when I was developing those skills as a leader, as a mechanical engineer. And that really allowed me to get to the point where I recognized I wanted to go into more of a leadership type of roles as opposed to strictly design. But in engineering, there's a glass ceiling in Canada where if you're not a professionally registered engineer, you have a hard time getting that job, the next level job. So my wife and I, we decided to sell everything we owned. Like, we both quit our jobs and we went to a town 1,400 kilometers away so I can finish my engineering degree. So I went and did 2 full years while working full time to finish that engineering degree because our kids were in, kindergarten age. We had a mortgage to pay. And so I would go to school during the daytime, and then I would go work an evening shift at a factory. And then I would sleep and do homework for 8 hours, and I'd repeat. So did that to get through school. And then after that, I got into the mining industry. So that's where it comes into FQM.
Okay. Let's just take a pause there. Let's just take a pause there.
Yeah.
You sold everything.
Yeah.
Weren't you afraid? Weren't you thinking, what if this thing doesn't work?
Confirm at the time you had a business.
No, so I had the opportunity to buy a business.
Buy the business, but
the business I was working in.
Yeah.
But that was right around the market crash of 2008, 2009.
Okay.
So it didn't make economic sense for me to go and buy that business. I went through all the books, and I was taking a business degree at the time, so I understood accounting.
Yeah.
And I realized it wasn't for me at that time.
Okay.
But, I had a house, I had a vehicle, I had, a place for a horse, all this kind of stuff set up because that was the life we were trying to build. So in order to move to the next step, my wife and I decided that we needed to make a full break and stop in order to move us to the next level.
I love that.
Was there a convincing conversation? Did you have to convince your wife?
Whose idea was
Very interesting. So, that's a bit of a story because
Let's hear it.
We were part of a small community, and it was a bit of a bubble, which is a nice community, but we knew everyone knew each other. We all kind of went to high school together, that type of thing. And it wasn't until we had the opportunity to travel somewhere else. We were, my in-laws actually took us on a vacation, and we saw a whole different part of the world that we never saw before.
Where did you travel to, if you don't mind us asking?
Yeah, so we traveled to the Caribbean.
Yeah.
So they had some inheritance money, and they decided to, spend it on taking a family somewhere. And for us, it was absolute luxury vacation.
Yeah.
It was a mind-blowing thing for us. We went to these different Caribbean islands and, saw what it was like in different cultures. And we decided, my wife and I, on that trip, that we wanted to make a difference in our lives so we can experience different places and different cultures, and not just what we grew up in all the time.
How old were you when you made that decision? If you approximately, of course.
Yeah, we were around that 27 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's so funny when you talk about your experiences. You were young.
Yeah,
because you did a lot of things early,
when he
right?
was young.
Right.
Like when you talk about your wife, a lot of people will be like mid-30s making those types of decisions. Are you about to say something? Yeah.
So this was pretty cool. Before we were filming, I'd asked him, "How old do you think I am?" And he said my correct age, right? And I said, "How old?" And I said, "This is funny because a lot of these, especially when we talk to people like cross-culturally who grew up and lived in a different culture, you pick up the differences and of course the similarities as well." I was like, a lot of people when you ask them here, based on how Bear and I present and speak and think about life, a lot of people think we're much older than we are. But from his perspective, he was just spot on because it seems like it's a cultural thing. Maybe, I don't know if in Canada, the level that he was thinking at when he was 17, because you said you went to uni when you were 17.
I started college when I was 17 years old. Yeah.
A lot of people here, okay, it's now becoming more common, but a lot of people start uni at 19, maybe even 20, So I think it's just like, again, your context is always king, I just wanted to highlight that.
Yeah, no, because for me, it's like we were 27 or late 20s when we were making those decisions. People are making those decisions when they're early 30s, mid 30s, right?
Right.
But then part of that is also the advantage of the fact that they had some time, they could afford to make certain mistakes at that age because they were still relatively young.
Yeah.
So,
but he did have kids and a mortgage and a car.
Yeah.
So
we took some risks.
Yeah.
you did.
That's what I really want to dive into.
The risk
taking.
Yeah.
What was going through your minds as you were handing in your resignation letters?
Yeah. It was stressful. There's no doubt about it that was stressful because, even to the point where I didn't have a financial picture on how we're going to even pay for school all sorted out, but we knew that's what we wanted to do. So we made the application for it. We got in, we realized, hey, if we want this to work, we got to sell our possessions and then move to this place and try to live as low cost as we could to make it happen. And my wife was working 2 jobs and I was working a job on the side while going to school. My kids were in daycare. So yeah, it was a big leap. But, when we talk about all the other activities I do, instead of jumping on a plane, doing these big running races, like selling all my possessions to go to university, it lines up with all that.
Okay.
That's our personality. It's who we are.
Yeah.
We take.
I mean, you guys got married
calculated
6
risk.
months.
Exactly.
6 months after meeting each
We
other.
did,
That's pretty risky,
It is.
in my opinion.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I agree with you.
There's some challenges with that, of course. And all these things, they're not easy, right? But I think it goes to show that if you want something and you just make a decision, you go for it.
And do you? I'll let you ask a question, but I'll be as authentic as possible. Do you genuinely believe? Do you believe that, like, if you believe something and you take a calculated risk, at least for you, has it usually worked? Has it usually worked out? And has there been times it hasn't worked out?
Sure.
What have you learned from those experiences?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Have you taken any risks that haven't worked out? Because we've spoken a lot about the risks that worked.
Yeah.
What about the ones that didn't work out?
Well, there certainly have been those situations or major decisions I've taken where in hindsight, it wasn't the right decision. But you don't really know that until after the fact, which is a problem. Hindsight's 2020. Yeah. Like the time I fell off a cliff skiing. I thought it was going to be a fun run, a good experience, a really challenging adventure. But then I fell off a 60-meter cliff and I wrecked my shoulder, and put me out for a year and a half. But when it comes to career decisions, like my job before FQM, like how did I get to FQM? I was working as a vice president of asset management at 40 years old for a nickel mining company. And it was a risky move because I left a fairly large established mining company in Canada, actually the biggest in Canada, to go to the smaller company to try to grow my career quicker in this vice president role. But then the nickel market crashed.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Just 9 months.
Was that because
after.
of the nickel coming out of India?
Exactly.
India. India?
Oh yeah, they found cheap nickel.
Yeah.
No, Indonesia.
Indonesia.
On the surface
Yeah.
or something. What do you call that layer? But then we don't need to get into
The
that.
laterite layer, but
Yes.
yeah.
We don't need to
So
get into
the story there from an economic perspective was China was investing a lot into those Indonesian mines.
Yeah.
And they were happy to produce nickel at a loss because they were using it in their factories to make batteries, and they would make the profit on the battery side.
Mm.
But most free economy market doesn't work that way because every person in a chain needs to make
needs to
profit.
benefit from it. Yeah.
Otherwise, everything stops. So where I was, we were actually we were partnered with the Cuban government to mine in Cuba and process the material in Canada. And I was at the place where we were processing, and I was like the top engineering manager and everything there. But because of the realities of the market conditions from the oversupply from these Chinese companies, it deflated the price on the London Metals Exchange to a point where we were really no longer profitable.
Became unsustainable. Yeah.
So they had to cut certain roles, and they cut out the engineering department, the asset management department, and a few other departments. So with that, they no longer needed a vice president of asset management.
Yeah.
So, a blessing in disguise. Well, it was very, challenging in that, like we're talking about the downsides, right?
Yeah.
So we just finished putting our kid in university, our daughter, helping her get set up. And then I go to work, and my wife is there, and she's ready to move into this new condo in this whole new town so that we can do this job. And I go into work in the Monday morning, and they give me they want to come into the office and have a chat in the conference room. I was like, oh, I kind of know where this is going.
Okay.
Yeah. And so they let me go, but they walked me through the package they were going to give me, and they ended up giving me a 6-month type of salary agreement. And so it was reasonable that I was able to find a new role with FQM, and I was very thankful for that. Yeah. FQM is a really great company. I'm very thankful to work for FQM. But what it did, though, on the positive side, is it gave my wife and I an opportunity to spend time together, traveling for the better part of 6 weeks. And so we went on a big road trip.
Okay, all right.
It's fantastic.
Another question I have, I don't know, Barry, if you've got a question.
I was just going to ask him where they went.
Yeah.
So
My question is, where did you go? Let's start with where did you?
Let's start with that.
Okay.
Don't lose your other question.
But let me not lose my other question. The biggest fear, people don't realize this, right? And this is more for the viewers, is a lot of us have a fear of taking risk in life. And the fear stems from the fact that if things don't work out, there might be a reduction, or the standard of living may go down.
Right.
Because everyone likes having the nice car, having the nice house, and they don't want to lose those things. But the funny thing is, it's not necessarily the fear of losing those things. It's the public perception and judgment that will be placed upon them that most people are scared of, because of course we live in like a connected society. So people don't want to be told, you made the wrong decision, so now this is why you have no car. Because I think about it, right? But people before, like most of us obviously who've had a natural progression through our lives, you had no car at some point. You could live with no car, and you lived. You had no nice house. You lived. You didn't have any 5-star restaurants, and you lived. So it's not necessarily that you can't cope with that. It's the judgment that will be placed upon you, and how that obviously affects like your circles and stuff.
Yeah.
So my question for you is, in those because obviously like it's sometimes like when you were vice president, like you were living your best life.
Yeah, it was a nice experience.
Exactly. And then when you lost that, and obviously things took a downturn, how did you, like, firstly, what implications did that have on your personal life?
Yeah.
On your life generally, like at your standard of living, and how did you deal with that?
Yeah.
Barry, like, you want to add on something?
No, so I was going to say, what you just said sort of feeds into that hedonic treadmill, because it's always about falling back to a baseline of happiness.
Yeah.
So whenever you buy that new car, and whenever you get that bigger house or that promotion, you still always fall down to that baseline of happiness. Yeah. And I guess it's the same thing in the other direction. You lose that job as vice president,
adapt.
or you sell all your possessions, eventually you still go back to your baseline of happiness.
Yeah.
So it is possible to live.
Yeah.
I was just adding on
I
to
think
you.
that, but yeah,
Yeah.
tell us.
No, very good point. And I resonate with that very well because, from my perspective, if it was only me, I'd be perfectly happy and fine living in a tent,
Yeah.
getting my food from the stream,
Yeah.
fishing. And I like that,
Okay.
but it's not only me, it's my wife and it's my kids that I'm accountable for and responsible for.
Yeah.
So I feel responsible to provide them, with, a nice way to live and try to help them get ahead in life. And I'm responsible for my wife, of course.
Yeah.
And so that's the stress that I have and I put on myself. So to me, that comes down to understanding the downside of decisions. So it's like making a bet. I'm not a bettor.
Yeah.
I don't gamble,
Hmm.
but I gamble on myself.
Yeah.
So I'll go and make, I understand the upside and I understand the downside. And I make a informed decision on taking that risk.
Okay.
And I actually do map out scenarios. So I'll actually go through and make a 3 to 5 year Excel sheet plan on different scenarios of taking those risks financially, but then also what it means for my family.
Yeah.
So I make big decisions in a calculated perspective.
Okay. So clearly you put a lot more thought into it than a lot of other people. I can imagine this whole Excel sheet with complex formulas and what's the probability of X?
Do you know what I'm
It's
thinking
true,
of? I'm thinking of NPV
Yeah.
and sensitivity analysis.
Yeah.
It's probably like NPV, positive. Okay, go
Okay,
for it.
let's
But then
go, let's
sensitivity analysis, if the price changes or if this happens,
How does it affect?
how does it affect? So because the other thing that I wanted to say is risk. I think, and a lot of people are afraid of taking risks,
Yeah.
right? I don't know what it is. And it's funny. I saw a joke somewhere where it said, you're willing to buy, I think it was a South African post, you're willing to buy a bucky, which you finance for 5 years, but you're not willing to put your 10,000 Rand, because it was South African, into something that might give you a return over 5 years.
Right.
Like, it's almost one and the same thing, right? But it's just because one gives you that intrinsic benefit of being in the car and pleasing people around you and saying, I drive the nice expensive car, versus I might put down this 10,000 Rand and get a return.
Yeah.
But I like what he said about balancing the risk, but also taking risks on yourself as a person. But then also the fact that it still goes back to that thing we talk about. You and I right now with no wives and no kids, it's not the end of the world if we lose our jobs. God forbid. We're not asking to lose our jobs, but if we did lose our jobs, it's only us that we're accountable to.
Yeah.
But it's much worse, or there's more to it when you got a wife and you got kids, right?
Yeah.
The stakes are higher.
The stakes are
And
much higher.
Just
Exactly.
to add on to that, the honest truth is, again, for people like you and I, now is the time that we'll feel like we have the least repercussions or consequences to our quote unquote decisions and or good or bad decisions. So if you feel like you can't take risk now, or if I feel like I can't take risk now, best believe when I've got a wife and 3 kids, I'm definitely not going to
be
take.
able
So
to
that should just give you, like, this is our only chance to take certain risks in life, So
Well, the downside of making big risky decisions is less when you're younger.
Yeah.
And you could recover much quicker. Right?
yeah, and you're 100% exactly, because the responsibilities you have are less, I guess,
Yeah.
at the time.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. Like, there's a few ways this conversation could go. Let's keep talking about that first quantum thing. So now you lose your job, you go traveling for 6 weeks. It's fun, it's nice.
Yeah.
And now you're back in a new job, new environment. You move to Zambia. Where's your head at? What sort of things are going through your mind?
Part of it, honestly, is like leaving my kids in Canada. So that's the biggest challenge we had. So my wife and I had a lot of conversations on how we're going to manage the situation. And there's some very big tax implications that we had to consider as well. Because if you're a residential in Canada, you have to pay taxes in Canada.
Yep.
So if I was doing FIFO and my
Yep.
wife was still there, then I get taxed as a Canadian.
Yep.
But if we're both here residentially, then we get
Get
taxed
taxed here.
locally.
Yeah.
And then I don't have to pay those Canadian taxes anymore. So that was a big factor in that decision-making process. But coming to Canada, coming to Zambia was a huge learning shift for me. When I first came here, I did 2 rotations of FIFO. So that's 6 weeks on and 2 weeks off at the time.
Yeah.
And it was really good, eye-opening. So much learning I had to do in that first 3 months to figure out what was going on.
Sorry, for the people that don't know what FIFO is.
I'll fly in, fly out.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I've never
Yeah.
worked mine and remotely.
So what that means, though, is the company flies you back to your home,
Yeah.
which was Canada for me.
Yeah.
And then every 6 weeks basically.
Yeah.
You got to go back home for 2 weeks. And it's a long time to be away from your spouse and your kids. And for part of that reason, my wife and I decided we want to be together. We're married. Let's be together.
Yeah.
So let's be residential here together.
Okay.
And the kids are in university anyways. So reality is they're not going to be spending every weekend with us.
Yeah.
So they're in university, hanging out with their friends. So it kind of works out that way.
Okay.
And it's a big adaptation time in our lives to get comfortable, I guess. But it worked. Yeah.
What was the thing that hit you the hardest when you came to Zambia? What was the thing that shocked you the most or surprised you the most? What was the thing?
That we don't ride on giraffes to work.
Hopefully that. Yeah. And we don't have pet lions and stuff.
That sort of thing. Don't just walk out and find snakes on the.
No,
You might walk out and find snakes.
yeah,
But
might. Yeah.
Not as much as they claim.
Yeah.
It's like Australia and the bugs. I hear it's not that deep.
Nah.
Yeah.
So, I had the opportunity to go to other places that were similar. And I'm talking like South America or Central America. And in a lot of ways, it's similar in how people live. It's a warm climate. So the average person doesn't need to have a big fancy house with insulation and nice windows and all that kind of stuff. You can get by with a lot less. But coming here, it was very apparent to see that there's a lot of people with less. And that's very different than Canada. Because in Canada, it's cold. So if you don't have a place to sleep at night, like you die.
Used to
You
death.
freeze.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah. So that was very eye-opening. But the really nice upside of it, people are so friendly here. In a lot of ways, it's like Canada. And Canada, it's different than the States. It's everyone, for the most part, is friendly, especially if you're in the rural areas. And, you can go up to someone and have a chat, especially with the area that we came from. So I had a lot of parallels with that with Zambia. The biggest differences I found was the heat. We're hot. We get really hot summers, but it's only about 2 months long.
Yeah.
And then it starts to cool off. Then it's cold, and it's a little less cold. Then it warms up. Here it's steady. Yeah. And we don't have a rainy season.
Oh, okay.
So there's winter, spring, summer, and fall in Canada. Here there's hot season,
cold season, and rain season. We have 3 seasons.
Yeah. People throw in windy, but
So wait, I'm going to ask a very dumb question. I'm assuming it does rain in Canada.
Yeah. So what do you mean you don't have a rain?
Yeah.
So is it that it rains consistently throughout the year, or it rains in one of those seasons? When does it rain?
Good question. So it's rainier in like spring to summer, like right around that transition from spring to summer. It's wetter then, and then it gets quite dry through summer and fall go on. And then winter time is cold, but it snows a fair bit, but it's like solid ice.
Yeah.
Right. So it doesn't really melt all that much. But yeah, it does definitely a rainier season, I'll say. Yeah, which is spring into summer.
So just wanted to throw in a Beyond the Blueprint moment for the guests. So we do these things called Beyond the Blueprint moments, which is that there are certain things that sometimes we take for granted, specifically for the people in Zambia, which is that in as much as sometimes we have less, which of course everybody wants to have more, that sometimes is not the worst situation. I know I'm not breaking it down very well, but what I want to talk about specifically is in Canada, it's extremely cold. If you don't have a place to sleep at night, you die.
Yeah.
Whereas in Zambia, we've got a number of people, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done, but people that are sleeping on the streets or living outside, you could go out to 2 at night and go to the bus station and find people
it's really
just sitting there having a bit of a chat, but you wouldn't get that in Canada. So while I agree, less isn't always nice, we do have the advantage of the fact that the weather here is favorable enough that even when people have less, it's not to their detriment.
Yeah.
So that's
the same extent.
That's my
true.
Beyond the Blueprint moment.
Yeah.
I wanted to circle back to your career progression, right? And one thing's become apparent from hearing you speak about how you've matched your education with your, I guess, where you sit on the corporate ladder, right?
Oh, yeah.
You seemed, because as you said, when you started out, with your diploma, because you thought a full degree was like was a waste of time, basically. It was too much.
Yeah.
Then you got some work experience, and then you started doing some. You obviously picked up a bit of leadership in your first job, and then you went. That's when you did HR, right?
I did HR as a night class.
As a night class.
Yeah, to get this.
And basically, you obviously quit. You go and do your full engineering degree,
Yeah.
and I think you've kept upping it from there, right? Then you did
Yeah.
an MBA at some point, and maybe you can run us through the whole journey. But it seems what you've chosen to do is, whereas in contrast here, some of the stuff most people study in university is, we're talking C-suite level,
Right.
you know. We go for, it's education first, then you get the position.
Yeah.
So we don't do, if you get a diploma here, even your chances of getting employed are pretty low,
Right.
Because they know it's not as recognized as the full qualification. Because here what we do is a lot of people get full degrees and actually get entry level jobs with a full degree. Whereas if you look at the content of that, it's actually at a manager level, you know, or even higher. So,
And sometimes people do masters.
yeah, even
Do an undergrad and a master's.
Yeah.
And still get an entry level job.
and still get an entry level
Right.
job.
Yeah.
So I just want you to firstly break down how you chose to approach it from your POV and like why you chose and how you see it, you know, basically.
Yeah. Well, I'll start by saying that I didn't necessarily start doing it in a conscious way. I did it because I thought a 4-year degree was crazy. I wanted to, go to school for a little bit and work.
Yeah.
Right. But what I found out very quick was, as I got into my career, I was about 8 years into my career, and I was hitting that glass ceiling of what my college diploma would allow me to do for some larger companies. I had to go back and finish a degree. But that degree unlocked doors for me. So then it allowed me to work towards becoming a professional engineer in Canada. And that's a statutory job. That's the same as what we have in Africa. And without that, you can't get certain jobs.
Yep.
But because I had that 8 years of prior experience, I very quickly came into like an engineering manager role. I started in a potash industry, which is mining. But there I had the opportunity to do like a entry-level engineering type work. But then I quickly moved into continuous improvement. And I took a Six Sigma statistical analysis black belt training course. And I applied that into, improvements. So it's a continuous improvement on process management and such. And then the company recognized me as a high performer, which was very cool.
Yeah.
So I got extra training in leadership and change management. And they actually put me into a safety superintendent role
Okay.
as a mechanical engineer.
Yeah.
So
it's not the first time I've seen that.
It's not far-fetched.
But the big thing on that, and I want to come back to that, is sometimes you're given opportunities and you don't realize it's an opportunity, but you should say yes to it because it helps develop a broader round experience. And because I had that opportunity to do that safety superintendent role, it demonstrated leadership, but also demonstrated that I could do more than just engineering.
Yeah.
And that was very good for my career going forward. And then I had the opportunity to go into another company where I actually mined uranium. And I became a chief engineer for them because I had all that previous experience and I knew how to do safety.
Yeah.
So it applied to that uranium world where safety is such a critical element
Of course.
of the, working.
Yeah.
And then that allowed me to become an engineering manager after a period of time. And then I moved to another company where I kept growing up in asset management.
Yeah.
And I ended up becoming a plant manager for that company, running a whole plant operation. And then I had the opportunity to become that. While I was doing that, I was learning all along at the same time, taking continual education courses, leading to an MBA, and the MBA turning into an opportunity for me to become that vice president of asset management. It kind of unlocked that door for me at the executive level.
Okay.
So will the opportunities always be at work, or sometimes there might be will the opportunities be outside work, and should people be taking the opportunities outside work?
So a really good way to build leadership experience is through clubs or other extracurricular activities. And you don't always get the opportunity at work because there's a bit of a hierarchy or you just don't have the experience yet. But sometimes if you could, for example, be, the chairman of the football club and organize tournaments, it's a really good way to learn that skill and to, learn how to manage large groups of people, to make events happen. And then you can bring that parallel back into your work and your career as well.
And have you done anything like that? Like you touched on being, I don't know if you said that, but like your kids playing football and you putting them into and becoming a coach. Do you feel like that did help you learn some leadership or?
Yeah. Yeah, certainly. So even when I was younger, like I was involved in like summer camp and church groups and stuff like that, and it gave me an opportunity to be a leader there. And then as I got more at the point where I was a father and my kids had activities, I would always either volunteer to be a coach or to be someone helping to lead the organization for the area. And that really built into work with a motocross club where I was the club president for a motocross organization. And it was essentially like running a small business on the side, but it's really community involved. And we had to do fundraising. We had to organize. We hired an employee and all these events that we put on. So learned a lot by doing that. And that really helped me as well on the work and leadership side, because I applied all the same skills into my work environment.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if I, basically played a role in a church club or in a social club, football club, or in any other environment, is it important that I also include that in my CV when I'm applying for a job? Does that give me brownie points? Does that even do anything for me?
It's a good question. So I do a lot of interviews, and part of my job is to interview good candidates and recommend them for FQM in the engineering side, for superintendent roles or for planning coordinator roles, for technical manager roles, and so on. And often what I look for, first of all, is a good technical acumen, but then also demonstrated leadership experience. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in the work environment, because if you're say you're an organizer for the engineering society, that's a big deal.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily related to your job, but it demonstrates that you have the capacity and the capability to take on a leadership role in the work environment.
Okay.
What's the craziest thing you've seen in an interview and or in a CV?
The craziest. Oh boy.
Or the funniest thing?
You know what? There's always interesting things that come up.
Yeah.
It always kind of cracks me up that someone's hobby is watching movies. I've seen that on TV.
Okay. That's
I was like, that's
okay,
good,
that's-
but maybe that's not
It's not necessarily adding value to it.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I'm okay. So putting the fact that you're good at watching Netflix is probably not a smart thing to
It doesn't add value in
Yeah,
your career.
necessarily.
I'll say that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
So mine for you is, you've spoken about a lot of skills, a lot of traits and I think you've got a pretty broad portfolio from all the things that you've done. What would you say is, and what would you advise people to, where would you advise people to really focus their energies, and what is one of the most important skills that people should focus on?
It's a big question, but I would say it's around working with people well. Every job that you have, whether it's engineering or business or finance, if you can get along well with people and really understand behavioral psychology when it comes to the workplace, I would say that's the number one thing that makes a big difference.
Okay.
You can be the best technical person in the world, but be a real jerk.
Yeah.
And you won't fit in or add to a company's, best interest.
Cool.
So, Timothy, you touched on something that I want to go back to. In our, and it changes. It's different, right?
Of course.
What we're seeing a little bit of now is people doing an undergrad degree, and then a master's, and sometimes a PhD before they get a job, right?
Yeah.
If someone has the opportunity to do an undergrad degree, essentially get into a job, gain some experience, and potentially pursue the next educational endeavor, what strategy do you think they should employ? Should they try and go the full 9 on the education side and then jump into the industry? Or should they do one qualification certification, get some experience, another qualification certification, get some experience? What strategy would you encourage them to employ, basically?
Yeah, good question. So what I always look for is somebody that's done some sort of cooperative learning while they're doing their education or an internship, so that by the time they graduate, they actually have practical experience in that field as well. So in Canada, what you can do is take a diploma program, but then and then you have like a 4-month break between classes. So I always look for people that have taken the opportunity to go work for a business in their field during their break, whether it's a internship that's unpaid or a minimally paid job just to get your foot in the door. And if you could do that all the way through your educational period for your undergrad, for your first 4 years, by the time you're done, number one, you have a technical schooling, but you also have almost a full year or year and a half worth of actual practical experience. Yeah. And then as you come out of school, don't necessarily, in my opinion, seek to take advanced education right away, unless you want to be very academic with your career. It's not necessarily bad, but I always suggest that people really get rooted in their career first and go through the steps of, the junior level roles and then moving up with more experience and to give it the time it takes. It could take 3 years. It could take 5 years. And then you're essentially qualified, in my opinion, after you do undergrad and you have 5 to 6 years of experience. Then you're kind of a useful, full, experienced individual, practical, but also understanding the fundamentals through the training.
Okay. And from what I'm understanding, would you say it's more beneficial? I don't know. Okay, generalist never really sounds great, but because a lot of the times you hear people saying specializing is much more beneficial and pays more dividends than being more of a generalist, right? But like even for yourself, you've done a wide variety of things.
Yeah.
Would you say sometimes, like, what do you suggest people should aim for? Because again, specializing too much as well.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you could lock yourself, you could like box yourself into a corner, right? But as you said, like even being a generalist more, you never know what opportunity comes your way,
right?
Or you never know what could make the difference. Like, yeah, you may be in asset management or whatever, but like just the safety component that you had spent a couple of years working on would have been the difference of them picking you as the person to take on that role.
Yeah.
So would you advocate for being a generalist, if that's the word, or would you break that down? Basically?
No, very good question. So it depends upon what you want to do with your career, right? So there's a couple different paths I always say. You could be a generalist with a broad range of experience, but within that, you got to do certain things well. So you could be a generalist, but you have to be able to, for example, lead teams well, or identify very capable people and develop them and build high working teams and solve problems. And if you can do those things, build good teams, solve problems, but do it across a wide range of different aspects, safety or finance or commercial or whatever, there's a lot of value in that because it demonstrates that you can solve problems that need to be fixed in all kinds of areas of the business. So that's one path. And that's really the path that I took in my career. And it allowed me to be well-rounded in a variety of different aspects. But I would say the one thing that has always been something that I focused on was building really good teams to solve important problems. Okay. So whether the problem was safety and health or engineering or operations, that's really what I developed my career around.
Do you feel, and I'll make it, okay, I'll make it 2 questions, but sometimes, this is a bit of a controversial view probably, right? Sometimes I feel the people you pick don't make much of a difference, right? And that's why it's controversial. I know you guys are looking at me right now. Like, what's this guy talking about? Because sometimes, like, especially with more established organizations, they've got systems in place, right?
Yeah.
Like if it's the way procedures are run or the way day-to-day work looks like, there's already like a methodical way in which they do things. And as long as you get people who follow that methodical way, right? And of course, like there's also in the improvement side of things. But I like how you said like solving like important problems requires you like really having a good team to solve those important problems. From your experience and all these traits that you notice in people, does the people aspect of things really matter that much? Or if you've got good systems in place, it can actually, help boost the people side of things.
Right. Yeah. So it goes hand in hand, right? But I would say the caution on systems is that you're only as good as the system. And every system has holes in it. Every system has holes in it. So I find it very important to bring in good, capable people and develop teams of people that aren't necessarily all the same, but have a broad range of experiences in a certain field so that every one of them can become really good at what they're good at. And when it comes down to being a specialist, if I'm hiring a team, I try to find people that are better at me at certain aspects, because then it builds us all up together. And if I have that variety of really good caliber people, good high caliber people that are very capable of different things, we're all better because of it in our team. Okay. So I would say it's very important to hire good people.
Okay. All right. So the people aspect is very important.
So would you prefer and I'm trying to think. I don't know. I don't know how much of a football fan you are, but would you prefer a team full of Ronaldos or a team full of relatively average people? And I know that the answer it lies between those two extremes.
Yeah.
But if you were to pick one extreme, which extreme would it be?
Yeah.
You know, I'd rather have, say, 3 really good players instead of one, fantastic, excellent player on my team.
Yeah.
Because those 3 players can help cover for each other.
Yeah.
And one excellent player is only really good on his good days.
Yeah.
Everyone has bad days, right?
Yeah.
So to have a pretty good team that has depth, to me, that's important.
Okay. So the more Ronaldos versus the average players is better.
Well, I would say that kind of in the middle, like you're saying.
Yeah. If you were asked to pick an extreme, your extreme would essentially be the more Ronaldos versus the average players.
No, isn't it the other way around? You'd rather have
because he said he would rather have 3
than the one.
Yeah.
So the one is the really good guy.
Yeah.
No. So what I was asking is, would you rather have 3 Ronaldos in one team versus having like 3 average guys in one team?
I get you.
Well, you always want to have the best team.
Of course, yeah.
No, because the thing that I'm going towards is because what you start to see with like really high performing teams is
they start to butt heads.
They either start to butt heads or they start to want more.
Okay.
And a lot of the time, ladders or hierarchies get smaller as you go to the top, right?
Right. Yeah.
So you've now got 5 or 3 really high-performing individuals, all of whom are deserving. The question is, how do you keep them satisfied and or motivated, considering the fact that the hierarchy or the ladder becomes narrower at the top?
Yeah. No, that's a good question. So what I purposely do is don't try to hold people back. If I hire good people on my team, I realize that good people eventually outgrow the team and go somewhere else. And I'm 100% okay with that. And I expect it to happen. Because if I can help a person reach their full potential or to be better than they were by bringing them in, and then their time with me to be better when they leave, I feel like I've done my job as a leader.
Okay.
Do you feel intimidated? Like, because I think sometimes you see really selfless leaders, people who are, like you're saying, happy to have high-performing people interact with them, join their teams, and excel, sometimes even beyond themselves. And you see some other leaders who essentially have high-performing people but sit on their progress. So do you feel intimidated? Where does the selflessness come from, essentially?
No, I don't feel intimidated at all. But for me, I want the best of the people around me. So if I'm building a team, I want the best for them individually, because I know that if I help them perform their best, then they perform, better for the whole team.
Yeah. Okay. Then my question for you is, have you ever hit a ceiling? Because you've spoken a lot about all the different feats you've achieved, but I haven't heard about anything that you failed to achieve, or at least something you really struggled and banged your head over.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, what are some of the things, and not even necessarily in the professional sense, even like in the ultra marathon stuff? Was there a time where maybe you couldn't beat the time?
Yeah.
I don't know. It could be in anything. Yeah. Tell us a bit about some of the times you failed to, you really struggled with.
Absolutely. I got a pretty long list of those stories.
That's okay.
But everyone wants to hear the story of you winning something or doing really good.
Yeah.
But if we want to talk about the ultra marathon running, so I signed up for a 50-kilometer race, and it was literally in my backyard. So in Canada, I have a place that's in the mountains. And the mountain trail in the backyard was a 50-kilometer route. And I thought, I got this in the bag. I know these trails. I run them every weekend. I can win this. I'm in shape. So I did my usual prep. Maybe I was a little too sure of myself. And I went out pretty strong. It was a pretty competitive race. I was in the top 10 out of maybe 75 people. And I just ran up this very large mountain. It was, I think, 2,600 meters tall. And to go from where I started to the top was about 1,200 meters of elevation gain. And so I ran up that mountain and I came back down. And then all of a sudden, the heat and humidity and my nutrition, it all went downhill on me. I overheated. My stomach was incredibly painful. I couldn't drink any more water, take on any more food. I was throwing up. And I was basically like struggling to get by. So I quickly went from top 10 down to hardly being able to walk. But I knew because I was fairly early in the race, I had enough time to finish it if I just kept going.
Yeah.
So I went from being in top 10 to just struggling to get through. And then the last 10 kilometers of that race was up this big mountain, 500 meters of elevation gain. And I had about 2 hours left to finish the race. And it was the same hill I train on almost every week. So I knew exactly how long it was going to take. A normal day would take me an hour to run up that mountain and run back down. So I actually went to the base of the mountain, found some trees, and I took a nap in the middle of the race.
Is it?
Yeah. So I took a 20-minute nap. My stomach felt better at the end of my nap. I woke up, I had some energy, I had some food, and I went hiking up this hill and I ran back down and I was able to finish it before the cutoff time. I was dead last.
Is it? Like, yeah, you're talking about
Dead
cutoff
last.
time.
Dead last.
That's cool. Taking a nap in the middle of a marathon.
It's crazy.
I've never heard of that. I have never heard of that before.
So I consider it a failure,
Yeah.
but I still finished.
And
Yeah.
the mental resilience you gain from all this stuff, from doing all these difficult things, have you seen it spill over into other areas of your life?
It certainly does, because for me, it made me realize that if I apply myself, I can usually achieve what I want to given the right amount of time. It takes a lot of determination and a lot of hard work, but all good things do. And, that really gave me that resilience, I would say.
And as a tip for the people, what would you say? You just spoke about struggling to learn things, right? And do things like if you just put your mind to it. Can you give the people, I guess, more like broken down tips on how to do that sort of thing? Like what do you do when you hit a brick wall, you hit a ceiling? How do you get past that?
I go and find someone that can help me.
Okay.
If I find something that by myself is too hard, whether it's training or education or something else, I go find a tutor, or I go find a coach. I find someone else that's done it before that I could learn from. I try to find a mentor, because I can only know so much. But if I go to someone that's done it before that can coach me to learn how to do it better, that can help me break through. Okay. That's made such a big difference for me. And it takes humility to do that, though.
Yeah. That's the thing that I was just about to ask about.
Yeah.
I don't really even know what the question is. I guess it is just that, right? Like it takes humility.
Yeah.
Being able to essentially accept the fact that I can't do this on my own, or I think this is, I'm incapable of doing this all by myself.
Yeah.
Going to another person, laying it down and admitting the fact that these are my circumstances, and essentially asking that person for help.
Yeah.
I think it does take a lot of humility. And I think, again, jumping on another Beyond the Blueprint moment is we need to be humble enough to understand sometimes that we can't do certain things alone.
Yeah.
And sometimes humble enough to accept the fact that we have tried and we have failed and that assistance is required.
Yeah, it's fundamental.
But when you're not doing all of these, competitive things like running ultra marathons, skiing, being an exceptional employee and delivering value, what else are you doing?
I like to spend a lot of time with my wife.
It's okay to say you watch movies.
Going to bed.
The reality on it, so what I do is I work very hard for, periods of time, and then I rest a lot.
Okay.
Because you could only work, if I work out really hard in the gym for 2 hours, that means I need to actively rest for 8 hours.
Yeah.
So I take that very seriously. And part of that is spending time with my wife, just relaxing, reading books, watching TV, and it doesn't sound very fantastic, but it's what I do.
Okay.
I work really hard and I rest really hard.
Do you struggle to find like-minded people? Because you're a pusher, from what I'm getting. And how do you? Because it's very difficult, finding a community that's also at the same level as you.
Mine is just starting from the wife.
How did you?
You guys met when you were really young, so there was an opportunity to really find that balance and structure around how you create your lives. But when you're doing, is she into sport as much as you, or into physical activity as much as you?
Well, I would say yes, but at a different level.
Okay.
So we both do. She actually runs as well. And if I go run a 100-kilometer race, she'll do like a 25 or a 50-kilometer race. And she'll do it at her pace and she'll enjoy it for herself. And I find that that's fantastic, because we don't have to be equal in our activities. But because we enjoy a lot of similar activities, we can train, and she could do her thing and I could do my thing. And it works really well.
And the like-mindedness of like friends and stuff.
Yeah.
Do you struggle to find friends basically?
Interestingly enough, I find that because of what I do, I go to places where people are like me, and we kind of just end up gravitating towards each other. And I've never had a problem finding friends, but I've always found that the true friends that have stuck with me the long time are people that are a very similar mindset. And these are people that are now general managers or own their own business, or, have a PhD in something, or are, an extreme athlete and an ambassador or a pro athlete, stuff like that. And it's very interesting, a very eclectic group of people all doing very interesting things, but at a high level in whatever they've chosen.
Okay. So I'm trying to get a story. So one of the things that I want to start doing a bit more on this podcast is getting people to tell stories.
Oh yeah.
Because I think whenever people tell stories, one, when people go back into the past, things that they've done, things that they've been through, they really light up. But then also I think for the viewers and for the listeners, they really like a story.
Yeah.
Right. So I'll pick one that I think will get people interested. If they've been listening this long, then
surely this will be interesting.
This will be worth it. So tell us, 21 years old, you meet this woman, 6 months later you decide to get married.
Yeah.
What's the story there?
Well, so we grew up in the same area.
And just before you finish, the beyond the blueprint moment that I'm essentially trying to take away from this is sometimes people think that we need to date for years and a lifetime before we can settle down with a person. You did hint on the fact that it does come with its own set of challenges, but considering the fact that you've been married from the time that you were 21 up until you're 43, it means it has essentially worked out, right? But what I want to hear is maybe somebody else might take away the fact that, you know what, I might not need to date someone for 5 years before I can marry them. I could date someone for 6 months and bite the bullet, make the decision. So go ahead.
There's a few aspects to that, and not everyone wants to hear it, but I'm going to start with we're both Christians.
Okay.
So we both have a lot of the same values that way, right? So that made a big difference when we first got together. But secondly to that is we both had a very adventurous mindset. So when we first got together, we had a lot of the same friends from the same area, but we never actually met. But because we had a lot of the same friends, we already had a lot of the same culture, which was very interesting. So when we came together, it turns out, I know you, because we're all friends together. Yep. So we immediately had that friend group. And then we took a road trip together, camping in the mountains.
Okay. And the friends or just you and her?
Together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you and the friends.
Yeah. We went camping.
Yeah.
And the story there was we were hiking up in the mountains and a bear was coming down the trail in the opposite direction from us. So we were like, holy smokes, there's a bear coming down the trail.
This is why you don't live in Canada.
By the way, this is why you get stories out of people.
Yeah.
Go on. Yeah.
So we're like, what the heck do we do? So we are like, well, we want to keep going up the trail. So instead of going on the switchbacks up the mountain, we went straight up the mountain.
Okay.
And we looked back and the bear was trotting down away from us. But there was another group of hikers there. And they kind of like screamed at it and yelled at it and stuff like that. But we're like, stuff that. We're out of here.
We're out of this place.
So we kept going up this mountain and we go all the way back to town. It's a 20-kilometer hike in the sun. And so we were at the bar actually relaxing, enjoying ourselves, having a couple of beers, had some nachos, that type of thing.
Yeah.
And we went to bed for the night and slept in our tent. And I woke up with so much pain. I was like, what is going on? And incredible pain. I thought I threw my back out or hurt myself or something. But it turned out my kidney wasn't draining properly. So my kidney was now 10 times the size of a regular kidney. So I had to go in and have emergency surgery that night. And, Shanna, my future wife, was with me and really took care of me the whole time. And, it was fantastic. And I was able to go to a place where
all things considered. It wasn't fantastic.
No, but this is
in hindsight.
In hindsight. But keep in mind, this is 2 months after we met, right?
Okay.
So she took very good care of me and stuff. And then we just kind of knew that we were kind of like meant for each other.
Okay.
And again, very similar values and everything like that. So 4 months after that, we got married.
So what was the conversation like, telling your parents, telling her parents that, look, we met 6 months ago and we've made the decision to get married?
Well, at that point in time when we were deciding to get married, it was only 3 months after we met.
Oh, okay. Great.
So,
wow. So even shorter.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we decided to get married almost within probably 6 weeks of meeting.
Is it?
6 to 8 weeks. Yeah.
Okay.
And then we're like, oh, well, we got to tell our parents. So it was Thanksgiving in Canada, and that's in October. And we're like, no, we're going to tell our parents. So I officially proposed to my wife then, and my parents, of course, they were very supportive, but you could tell they were kind of, unsure of what's going on, right?
Okay.
But they're like, no, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
So we decided to get married January after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, that's the story there.
Okay. I want to get another story out of you. So what happens when you break when you mess up your shoulder in the skiing? What's the story? How do you end up on the skiing trip?
Yeah.
What happens?
So at that point in my life, I was very, very fit. I was preparing for a 100-mile race. That's 160 kilometers. And I was training all the time. I was the fittest I was ever in my life. And I was, at that point in time, spending a lot of time with one of my good friends who is a professional skier.
Yeah.
Very, very good skier. I've been in the industry.
Professional Olympic skier level, or
like backcountry extreme
Okay.
skier. So he'll go up in the steepest mountains, get dropped off by helicopter, go down the mountain, do backflips.
I know that.
Going down that extreme
like
mountain.
X Games type of
X
thing.
Games?
He was in the X Games.
Okay.
Yeah, he has a silver medal from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty
So
cool.
that caliber, right?
Yeah.
Some of
Yeah.
the best, one of the best skiers in the world.
Yeah.
So
silvers
the
right.
snow was fantastic. We were spending the day together, having a lot of fun. And then there was this one slope on our local hill.
What part of the world were you? Were you in Canada?
It was in Canada.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's a very extreme, steep slope. It's not even an official run. You have to go under this little safety gate and get over to get to this place. And
He breaks the rules sometimes.
Yeah.
wow.
I'm glad he breaks the rules.
It sounds like
He is
a story.
human.
Yeah.
Have you ever read the book, The Psychology of Money?
No, I haven't.
Okay, he
should.
tells yeah, you should. It's a really
Yeah.
good book. But he tells a similar story as to how he lost his friends because of doing the exact same thing of going under, the barricade.
Yeah.
But anyway, carry on.
Well, I knew it was safe because they did avalanche blasting that morning in that area.
Okay.
And I'm also avalanche trained.
Mhm.
So I know where's safe to go or not safe to go. And I know how to do all that stuff.
Oh,
So again, it goes back to risk management.
Yeah.
Take the training, understand what you're doing and what you're getting
and
into.
take on the risk.
The problem there was there's a section to get to where we want to ski down. And getting to where we want to ski down, there's a big, huge cliff. So you had to be very careful for about 10 meters.
Yeah.
And if you fall during that 10 meters, you're going to fall off a cliff.
Yeah.
But when you get to the other side, you're pretty fine. Then you just ski down. But I fell in the place where you're not supposed to fall. So I started falling down this cliff. And by the time I started, I couldn't control. It was like pretty much straight down.
Yeah.
And as I was falling, I knew that there's nothing I could do. I was just kind of along for the ride. I could feel myself spinning, bouncing off of trees, stuff hitting me in the face. What hurt me though was I had the ski pole strap around my wrist still,
Yep.
and my ski pole got stuck in a tree, and it yanked my shoulder out of its socket by being up. And the only thing that let go was it broke the strap. So there was enough strength or stress to break
Yeah.
that strap, and that pulled my shoulder out
Out of the
about
socket.
4 inches, like about that far.
Damn.
Damn.
Out.
And I kept falling, and I landed sitting up in a pile of really deep snow. So because of that, I didn't die.
Yeah.
Because I could have. It was
Thank God.
It was a
pretty
really
big
high.
cliff. So I'm sitting in the snow. I'm checking myself over. I think, oh, I'm actually okay. I'm
Yeah.
alive.
Well, that's the adrenaline at
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
But then it started throbbing, right? And my buddy was like, oh, are you okay? I'm like, oh, I think so. And it's like, wait a second, I think I broke my arm. He's like, oh yeah, I can't move. So, and then it hit me, the pain, like it just nailed me. So I ended up getting taken down by a ski patrol in a sled to the bottom. And then they gave me some pretty fast acting drugs. And it took a while, but they were able to put my shoulder back in place. But it screwed up my life for a while,
Yeah.
like a proper year.
Sounds like my shoulder from benching.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Pretty much the same.
Yeah. Never
But how
never good.
old were you at the time, approximately?
Oh, this is like 3 years ago. So
Oh,
I was
okay.
40.
So only
What,
just like,
what was
only
the
just
conversation
recently-
like with your wife?
Well, I called her up in the hospital. Well, actually at the base of the ski hill. And I'm like, yeah, I really hurt myself. You should probably come. She's like,
Yeah,
okay.
but did she
Come
did
take
she-
care.
did
Come
she-
take
did
care
she-
of me again.
again?
Yeah,
again.
Exactly.
Did she blast you for, I don't know, going
Oh,
under
no.
the barricade and doing something that you ideally shouldn't have been doing?
Yeah, she wasn't super pumped about it. I'll say that. But she's supportive of me in general. And, that was a wake up call though for me
Mm.
about understanding my limits. and staying within my boundaries. So there's a lot of extreme stuff I can do and a lot of extreme skiing I can do, but I have to know where that edge is. And at that point in time, I was skiing with somebody that's quite a bit better than me.
Yeah.
And I went beyond probably my own comfort level that I should have, because I really wanted to try that one thing I haven't done before.
Okay.
But it turned out that was the edge for me.
Yeah.
It's too far.
Beyond the blueprint moment, understanding your limits.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think that's the moment you said that, understanding my limits, it resonated so much. And part of why I want to say that is because I think we take a lot of things for granted, right?
Yeah.
Like for me, I think I'm not the slowest driver around, and I've never been in a car accident, thank God. And I pray that I don't end up in a car accident. But sometimes it takes some of these experiences. Like I have a pretty bad habit of sometimes texting or like looking at my phone or checking my notifications as I drive. And I recently had an experience in which, with all the motorbikes in Solwezi, I'm checking my phone, and as soon as I lift my head, this motorbike's right in front of me. And I swerve a little bit, but then he still bumps into me.
Oh, man.
No damage on my car, no damage on his bike. And they actually swerved and fell off the bike.
Yeah.
But like it's things like that sometimes we're like, yeah,
Probably
we really need to know our
Like,
limits
all the
sometimes.
time.
But
Yeah.
we are human beings. We always want more and more.
And we overestimate.
And we do
our
sometimes
capabilities.
overestimate.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you a random one, because I think some interesting stuff has really come up from you just telling us two stories as we wind up the conversation. I have the stories that I tell people whenever I have a first time conversation. So, I might talk about my one experience with a croc, and we're not going to talk about it now. Or, I don't know, like traveling to SA, or another trip about people getting lost and, navigating wrongly and finding themselves in the Congo.
Yeah.
What's your one story? The story that you tell people whenever you meet them for the first time, or you're hanging out with people and there's a bit of conversation going around the table.
Yeah.
What's your one story?
No, good question. What I've learned over the last little while is before I start telling my story, I want to learn other people's story. Because, you can tell I do a lot of interesting things that are interesting to me.
Yeah.
And some people would say they're extreme.
Yeah.
In the past, I had a tendency to like spout off all the extreme things I've done because I think it was, something to talk about. But I would come across as being very braggy.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I learned not to do that.
Okay.
I learned that's a trait I had to like not do.
Okay.
So in conversation, if I'm talking to someone, I'll ask their interests. But then I'll come up and we'll start to get a similar, interest about something. So we'll explore that a little bit more. But usually what I talk about nowadays is my family and my kids. My kids are doing this. I'm really proud of them. My wife's doing this. I'm really proud of her.
Yeah.
And I usually don't make it about an extreme story about myself.
Yeah.
I have lots.
So and that's it's really good that you're open with that, because I think sometimes we do have the tendency of getting caught up in the moment and just talking about ourselves as human beings. And like you've said, I think some people might take that as, okay, that's a bit self-centered and or conceited. Like, all you want to do is talk about yourself.
Right.
And I had an interesting conversation. I was at dinner on Friday, and I can tell you about who I was at dinner with on Friday after, when the mic's gone off. But one of the things that person said was, one thing that I like about Barry is he asks questions.
Mm.
He doesn't walk into the room and just start to talk about himself. And while some people are not entirely comfortable with being grilled and ask questions about themselves, I think it does show that there's a human when you actually do ask people things about themselves, because it means you're curious and interested enough to know about them.
Yeah.
But in this particular moment, we're trying to get the braggy story.
We're the ones asking the question.
So we want to know,
Yeah.
what's the extreme one? What's the funny one? What's the interesting one? What's the story that pops up in your mind that you think you want the listeners to know?
Wow. I always come back to, I really enjoyed motocross racing growing up and as a kid.
Yeah.
So there was this one race event where I thought I was a pretty good hotshot rider. And then me and my friend, we load up our bikes, we go to the next province over, and we're going to do this great race in the woods. It's going to be fantastic. We're going to win. It's obvious,
Yeah.
We get there and it just starts pouring rain. pouring rain. It does not stop.
Yeah.
But we got to do this race anyways. So we get our bikes all out, we get up there, and man, we could hardly even go. Like, it was just so slippery and so muddy.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, everyone around us is experienced. They have different styles of bikes, different tires. They knew what they were doing properly, and they were just going.
Okay.
So, so we go up this mountain trail, and it was so slippery and rainy. There was a stream of water coming down the mountain, and you're supposed to go ride up this mountain on a dirt bike. So I was like, oh, how the heck am I going to do this?
Yeah.
So I stopped, made a big circle, went straight up this, hold it wide open.
Yeah.
And it made it all the way up this mountain.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that was pretty good.
Yeah.
Now all I have to do is go down. So I slowly go down the mountain. And the whole time I was doing that, I was like, I'm going to die. I'm going to die.
Yeah.
Right. I go all the way down the mountain and I finish my loop. And I'm like, I'm done. I stop.
Yeah.
So the pros, the guys that were good and won the race, they ended up doing like 3 or 4 of these loops in about the same time I did one. Wow. And at the end of the race, I felt so deflated. But this guy comes over to me and says, holy smokes, you're that guy from the other province over. You were just going straight up there, holding it wide open. That was incredible. And I was like, oh, you didn't see the rest of it. I was pretty scared the whole time. And it was just luck I made it up that thing. Yeah. But, that was a heck of an experience. Yeah. And it was a lot of fun. And, I like to tell people.
Did your mate make it up as well?
He did okay.
Okay.
But he was a professional level motocross racer.
So it was a bit expected from him.
Yeah, it was expected. But,
Got a bit of a beyond the blueprint moment. Sorry, I'll keep calling them out.
Yeah, man, of course.
Sometimes we see people doing things and we think they're comfortable, but they're flipping scared.
Oh, yeah.
They're scared.
Don't underestimate it.
And I think we underplay that a lot. Yeah. We see people walk up on stage and speak to a large crowd, and we think that person's comfortable. We see people ascend into leadership positions and think, yeah, this is a walk in the park for them.
Yeah.
We see people have kids. We see people get married at 21 after 6 months of knowing each other and go skiing and whatever. I think the short of the long is, even for you as a person, sometimes when you are scared of doing something, think about the fact that if anybody else was put in that situation, they'll probably be as scared as you. So don't stress too much. Don't worry about it too much. I guess being wide open and you can school us is essentially like having the throttle at like basically foot on the gas, but in this instance, it's like throttle fully open, right?
It's like gas pedal all the way down.
Gas pedal all the way down.
And if something bad happens, there's not a whole lot you can do about it.
Exactly.
So the best. Yeah.
So in anything that you do, even if you're scared and or worried, just open up that throttle, climb up that mountain.
Calculated risks, though.
Don't come back with a broken shoulder. I think that's been a very interesting conversation. Before we leave, do you guys have anything else?
I don't know if David has something. I'm good.
No, I would say for me, like, I mentor a lot of people, and the one thing I always say is, it's a long road. Don't expect to find success immediately, and give yourself the time and patience to grow along the way. And it's so important to not get discouraged in where you're at, but to continue to grow every day. It's fundamental in everything, whether it's running or training or high rocks or career.
Podcasting.
It doesn't happen immediately. So give yourself the time and the grace, but also find a mentor. Find someone that's done it before that can show you the path. It makes such a big difference.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, David. We appreciate it. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, of course. Me.
I know a lot more about you now. They know a lot more about you now. And I think we've gone everywhere.
Yeah.
We've talked about your personal life. We've talked about your professional life. We've gone back to talking about your personal life. I like the way we sort of closed off with just telling some stories about some of the experiences, but finding some beyond the blueprint moments in those stories. So thanks. I hope this episode is something that you carry with you for the rest of your life. And I don't know, another story that you get to tell some other people.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Maybe sometime you can tell people that you went on the coolest podcast ever. So.
Of course.
Don't see why not.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much. We enjoyed the conversation. We hope you enjoyed listening to the conversation as much as we enjoyed having it. You guys, please like, share, subscribe. We really appreciate the support that you're giving us. It means a lot. It goes a long way. And as we like to say in everything that you do, please think beyond the blueprint.
Alrighty.
Cheers. We'll catch you in the next one.
See you guys around. Peace.
Cheers.